This is the Blasian Baddie, Mia Yim, and you are listening to Pro Wrestling Post Podcast.
You're listening to the Pro Wrestling Post Podcast with your host, Mark Madison. This episode's guest is Mia Yim. Visit ProWrestlingPost.com for interviews, blogs, and upcoming events in your area. You can also find the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Anchor, or whatever podcast app you prefer. And now here's your host, Mark Madison.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Pro Wrestling Post Podcast. I am joined by Mia Yim. Thanks again, Mia, for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. We are here live, actually, at the Smash Wrestling the Northern Tournament. Before we get into the actual questions, I just want to thank you. Welcome to Canada. Welcome for being here.
Thank you for having me. I think it's my second or third time back. I love Canada, so glad to be back.
What initially drove you to pursue wrestling as a career? I know there's been injuries that you've suffered. Has it ever been something that you maybe this is what I want to pursue moving forward?
Growing up, I've always been a tomboy, so I've always been involved in I grew up in California on this block, so we'd always play street hockey, football. So I was always involved, and then watching wrestling back in the day where it was The Rock, Stone Cold, Lita, Chyna. We would watch as a family, and my dad and my sister grew out of it, but I continued to watch it. And then when I saw Lita and Chyna, especially wrestling with the guys, that's when I knew, I couldn't play football with the guys, but if I can wrestle with the guys, I'm totally down for that. So I continued watching, and I told my parents that's what I wanted to do, and of course they did not approve. So once I turned 18, I just signed myself up for a training school and just kept up with it.
Awesome. But now you have suffered some injuries. Has it ever been something where, it's part of the business, you're going to get through it, but did it ever change your mind moving forward?
I've, knock on wood, been lucky. I've only suffered recently a leg injury that took me out for several months. I needed surgery. And it's been my first serious injury my whole life. So I've never broken a bone before. I played collegiate volleyball and, suffered minor stuff here and there, but nothing too crazy. But even in volleyball, whenever I had to sit out for a game or something, it was still I just need to get better so I can get back into the game. And the mentality was the same with wrestling, where once it happened, I knew something was wrong. And after getting the I always thought the hard part was just getting through the surgery, and then I could focus on recovery. But I didn't realize the mental challenges of just trying to stay sane and not go crazy. And thankfully, my roommates with Shayna, Jessamine, best friend Blake, all of them would check on me every day. And my roommates helped me out a lot, just keeping me watching wrestling so I can stay fueled and passionate and still motivated to come back even stronger. So thankfully, I never had the thought of quitting or just saying this isn't for me. It was more of I need to come back and I need to be stronger and I need people to realize that I'm not going anywhere.
Outstanding. Share, if you could, your early training, how it might have changed throughout the years, and what did you walk away from each experience? Because I know I just had a chance to speak to DJ Hyde, and he had said, everybody can kind of teach you how to do a wrist lock, but everything kind of works differently. How did each situation work differently for you?
So when I first started training in wrestling, I was already conditioned because I was playing volleyball in college. So conditionally, I was fine. Yeah. So I was used to just running around, blow up drills. And I started training in this small school in Virginia. And then I got picked up by CZW, by DJ, and Ring of Honor at the same time. So I lived in DC, and I would commute about an hour and a half, 2 hours to the Philly area so it was Monday and Wednesday would be, for example, Ring of Honor, and then Tuesday and Thursday would be CCW. Wow. So every day I would drive during the week just to train. And I got something different from both schools just because Ring of Honor was a lot more fundamentals, starting, wrestling one-on-one. And then CCW was a lot of fundamentals as well, but it was a lot of, okay, what do you want to work on? What do you, let's try this, let's try that. So I got two different sides from both schools learning at the same time. So my style now is very hybrid. So I'm learning all these different styles, whether it's lucha, joshi, American, UK, or British wrestling. And it all started with just going to two different schools and learning two different styles, and then just combining it into just being diverse.
Awesome. You did touch upon collegiate volleyball. with going into university, was volleyball ever something you wanted to maybe pursue as potentially something? Because did you get a scholarship for that?
I did.
Okay.
So I played volleyball in high school all 4 years, and then I got a full ride to Virginia Union for 2 years, and then I transferred to Marymount University, which I got a partial.
Oh, okay.
But I wanted to do volleyball, like pursue it for the Olympics. That's what my dad wanted me to do. But I realized that I'm 5'7", and I'm probably one of the smallest girls playing volleyball. So I knew if I was going to join the Olympics, one, I have to be really, really good and have to get a really high vertical.
Okay.
So I kind of already had it in my head that there wasn't really a possibility of making the Olympic team.
Yeah.
And then when I started training for wrestling, that's when I full on like pursued wrestling. Like I love volleyball. I still played volleyball just so I can get through school and everything. But once I started training, wrestling was my passion.
Favorite position?
Outside hitter.
Nice. My son plays, so that's why I asked the question. Shine, Shimmer, Impact Wrestling, CZW, all different promotions you were part of. How is each experience different? I mean, I think it's in asking that, well, yes, some are female only and some are male, but more maybe beyond that. I'm sure experiences and relationships are always different from whoever you interact with. Right?
Shimmer, in Shimmer, I learned a lot from, just because it was a large group of women from different generations all over the world getting together. So I'm able to pick everyone's brains, along with being able to get feedback from, say, an Allison Danger or Alexi Fife, the women there that are watching our matches that I can actually go and get honest critiques from. Yeah. Impact, I learned TV wrestling. I never knew that TV wrestling and regular indie wrestling was anything different until I started wrestling for Impact. So thankfully Pat and Gail helped me through that. Just everything from looking at hard cams, facials, things I never even thought about doing when I was wrestling for, say, for example, CCW. But like in Japan, everything, the style's different over there. In Japan, I wrestled for a company that also brought in Mexican wrestlers. So I was able to learn lucha as well as Joshi. And then, of course, the British wrestling out in the UK for Southside. So every company I try, and I'm still learning to this day, I try to learn from every opponent, every company, just because I want to be able to know everything.
Now, you said, you've traveled, you've met different people, you've faced different people. Is there a match maybe that went under the radar? I mean, people can say, yeah, Mia Yim versus was great. Mm-hmm. But if we had to ask Mia Yim, which one didn't get the attention that maybe it deserves? It's tough to sometimes say underrated, because I'm sure you can look back and that was great and that was great, but is there something? Doesn't matter who?
There's one, but I think I know why. I wrestled at Shimmer recently against Acha Kong, who is my #1 dream match. Like, she's the one that I was watching when I first started wrestling. So I finally got to wrestle her, and the people there was talking about it, but the reason why nobody's talking about it now is just because it's not out on DVD yet. So I think that's why, and it's just waiting for that to come out. But that one is one. I know me and Greg Excellent, our feud would always hold dearly in my heart, and I know everybody still talks about it to this day, but I feel like he's the one that needs all the credit. Like he's the one that deserves it all, just because he made me in that match. He made me. So I constantly want to tell the world, like, Greg Excellent is a star, and in our feud, he's the one that needs all the attention.
What was it about both matches that maybe stand out?
With Aja, just because it was something, first of all, I don't really cry unless it involves wrestling. So after that match, I cried. Just because it was a real dream come true. Because whenever, for example, people say don't ever meet your legends or your idols just because, you never know.
Yeah.
With her, it wasn't that at all. She was ready to work. She wanted to do stuff. The story was there. It was great. It was everything I imagined it would be when I first started watching her. Okay. And then with Greg, I've always wanted to be looked at as an equal, not as a female wrestler. Mm-hmm. And he made sure to keep it equal. He made sure not to treat me anything special or different. So I enjoyed the fact that I wasn't being treated as, quote unquote, just a girl.
Are you looking for the newest and hottest in the world of pro wrestling? Then check out the amazing action on Powerslam.tv, the biggest indie pro wrestling channel in the world. Get over 6,000 hours of the best events from over 150 of your favorite promotions from 20 different countries around the globe. Brands like Progress Wrestling, Evolve Wrestling, Combat Zone, Defy, PCW Ultra, PWX, Over the Top, Shine, and hundreds of others with fresh content added every day for only $5.99 per month. Get your free trial today at Powerslam.tv.
Often it's said that the keys to success is being able to adapt. Change is important. Is there any match that you've maybe had where it started off one way, but then this is not working, but then it got progressively better? Anything you're comfortable sharing? Where the chemistry wasn't there initially and then it started to click?
That happens regularly in Japan, just because of the language barriers. You have an idea of what the match is going to become, and then you get involved in it, and then it's not what you thought it was going to be, so you have to kind of change up some things. And then it ends up better than what you thought it would. So that actually happens regularly in Japan, in my opinion.
Have you been to Mexico or competed there? I
haven't been to Mexico, no.
Is there aspirations? Maybe?
Not really.
Not really? Okay. But you've been in the UK? Or?
Yes.
Okay. So, anyone that follows your Twitter will see that you have a very unique relationship with Shelton Benjamin.
Oh, God.
So, and this is meant in all fun. So, share the friendship. The bantering is always so fun to see from a distance. How's that all gone down? How long have you known Shelton for?
I was going to say, I love Shelton, but I know he's going to hold that against me forever. But,
we can edit that out.
So I've known Shelton since 2011. So almost 7-8 years now. And we met at this show in the New England area, and it was called like NEW or something. I remember it, and I never really remember how I met people, or I have horrible memory, but I remember meeting him because I think I told this story out before. I was eating chicken wings, and he just comes up and starts eating chicken wings. So we just started eating chicken wings together, and then from the jump, we were just like on each other. We were just like bantering from the jump, and that's how we clicked. And then I've always looked at him like an older brother. He always took care of me. He always makes sure to have my back. Even when we don't see each other for long periods of time, like we still talk to each other just about every day. Just keeping up with our lives and just joking with each other, making sure, like, he's the reason why I'm not fat. Like, I was getting fat and he pointed it out. So he's the reason why I'm like jacked in shape. And I do the same for him. So if I, notice he's gaining some pounds, I'll be sure to point it out. But that's how we keep each other just prepared for life. And he, especially after one of my relationships, the domestic violence one, he was there for me throughout the whole thing. Like, he made sure that, if I needed a place to hide away, like, he would make sure that I had a place and that he would come get me if anything were to happen. So even though we banter, we go back and forth with each other, it's all full of love, and it's, we have each other's back. And he's someone that I would keep in my life even after wrestling.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he's still a piece of shit, though.
Are you looking for the newest and hottest in the world of pro wrestling? Then check out the amazing action on Powerslam.tv, the biggest indie pro wrestling channel in the world. Get over 6,000 hours of the best events from over 150 of your favorite promotions from 20 different countries around the globe. Brands like Progress Wrestling, Evolve Wrestling, Combat Zone, Defy, PCW Ultra, PWX, Over the Top, Shine, and hundreds of others with fresh content added every day for only $5.99 per month. Get your free trial today at Powerslam.tv.
Now, and many will argue against one of the topics that never seems to die down is intergender wrestling. There are those that are for it, against it, criticize it. Tonight's show has shown so many great intergender matches. Your thoughts on it, because you face both men and women. What do you say to the criticism? What do you say to the art form? What do you say to it?
Everybody has their own opinion, and if they don't like it, that's fine. It's not everybody's cup of tea. what gets under my skin is when people tell me, oh, you're a DV advocate, why are you wrestling men? And my main argument is it's all about consent. Like, if I consent to a match, whether it's man or female, then it's fine. So it's all about that. And like I said earlier, I just want to be looked at as an equal. Like, I just want to be looked at as a performer, as a wrestler, not as a special attraction or just a female wrestler or whatever. So I mean, if you don't like it, that's fine. Just don't, talk garbage about me because I do it. And there's a lot of people that do, but to me, it's like, this is what I enjoy. I get to wrestle some of the people that years ago I couldn't even imagine wrestling just because, it was taboo to wrestle guys.
Right.
So like today, wrestling Matt Riddle, he was a dream match of mine, and it was great to finally be able to experience wrestling him. And he treated me like a wrestler, not as a female. So regardless on whether you hate it or not, I enjoy it, and I love intergender wrestling. And anybody that's also, other female wrestlers that also is involved in intergender wrestling, keep doing it. Like, don't let anybody stop you.
Good. You do mention that Keith Lee, a recent match you had, he publicly had stated he was someone he wanted to work with you. How did that match initially all come about, the planning, the preparation? What moments within the match stood out? I'm surprised you're still walking. I think that's just to watch you but that's part of the beauty and the art form of what you do, right? Is just seeing that.
He's another one that I've always wanted to wrestle as well, but I just never thought that I would. So when Beyond contacted me and told me that he wanted me to be his last match, I was honored and flattered, and of course I was going to say yes. So we're already friends now, so it was, it was easy talking over things, figuring out what to do, and just coming from injury, I still had a mental block of doing certain things like high-flying moves, suicides, things like that, but I knew with Keith, I would be able to do whatever because I knew he would protect me. He'll make sure to keep me safe. So it was a mental challenge for me to push myself to get back to what I was doing before the injury, just so I can mentally say, okay, I can do this now. Like, I don't need to be scared to do it anymore. And he took care of me. And I hold that match dear to my heart just because it was his last match before going to who knows where.
We're not going to say anymore.
But I mean, it was awesome. I loved that match. I had a lot of fun. He had a lot of fun. It was everything he wanted, which my thing is, this is his last match. So we'll do whatever you want to do, just go all balls to the wall, whatever you want. As long as you're happy with it, I'm happy with it. And I don't know if I should say this or not, but he was supposed to win that match, and he stayed down for that roll up, which was, I thought I messed up, but then I realized what he did, and it was like, your last match and you did that for me, like, that was flattering. That was nice. So yeah.
Why did you think it wasn't going to happen in the match? Because you said, I didn't know if it was going to happen. What doubt did you have in just it coming together?
For
the match, actually, because you said, he was one of my dream matches. I didn't know if it was going to happen.
I didn't know he did intergender matches. And then I saw him wrestle Angela Slane and another female. I was like, oh, okay, so you do wrestle females. But I always feel like, especially guys at that caliber, like a Matt Riddle or a Keith Lee, like, they don't really care for intergender just because they're doing so much with the other guys and just having those matches that it's like, as a female, it's like, I don't think, I'll ever get to that level where they would actually want to wrestle me. So it was an honor to know that he actually wanted to wrestle me just as much as I wanted to wrestle him. So, yeah.
A lot should be said about your strength, your resilience, your ability to speak up against domestic violence, and it's well documented. If anyone feels hopeless about their situation, what can you say to help them to change, especially in light of the Me Too movement that is so prevalent, right?
Yeah. So I always tell everybody that safety is first, and especially in a DV situation, because it's so complicated, it's such a manipulation mind game that you think that you're trapped, and that's exactly where they want you to feel. But there are people out there that will listen to you, that will help you, whether you want their help or not. Like, you're not alone. I always try to make that a point that you're not alone. And even though it feels like it, there's always light at the end of the tunnel, as long as you're able to reach out and get help, because people are always going to be willing to help you. You just have to be sure to be safe with it, just because like my situation, I was, how do I explain? I was concerned for my safety, but I knew that there was an out. Like I could get out, whereas there's still some people there that are, if they were to even try, then their safety would be jeopardized.
Right.
So as long as you have a plan in place, trusting friends that you can go to, like you're not alone. And if you speak up, if you speak out about it, and ask for help, there will be help.
Fantastic. We're about the midway point of 2018. What does the balance of 2018 have for me again and beyond?
My goodness, kind
of crazy how June kind of snuck up
I
on
know. I've done everything I've always wanted to, even though I thought I never could. As far as being on TV with Impact, being a champion, traveling the world. I've done the Mae Young last year. My main goal right now is I want to be a full-timer with WWE, but especially just coming from injury, I already missed out on 3 to 4 months of the year. So I've been saying this everywhere. I'm just trying to reclaim my time. I got to build my momentum up. I'm trying to make sure to let people know that I'm not gone. I'm not disappearing. I'm not going nowhere. And so I'm just going to keep pushing, having good matches, and showing the world that I'm better than what I was before.
Great attitude. Before we let you go, interested if you're up for playing a little game.
Yes.
Okay. The game's called Wrestling Tinder.
Oh my goodness. This is awesome.
Okay. So much like regular Tinder, if you're interested in the topic, you'll swipe right.
Okay.
If you're not interested, we'll swipe left. Okay. Criticism between generations on wrestling. So So you'll hear the Rip Rogers and sometimes Randy Orton's, they'll come out and they'll say, don't like that flippy shit. So, but what's removed is 10 years ago, that generation had the generation before them criticized. What's your perspective on the difference of generations and what you saw from what you grew up on? If you're not interested, okay, swipe left. It's becoming very hard. So, hardcore wrestling. So you were part of CZW, ECW, still at some points. Now we saw in Impact where Sami Callihan, whether that was protected or planned or not, is there a place for that? Is it too risque for today's generation?
So
you could swipe right if you're interested, swipe left if you're not. So
see, that's the thing. I'm like in the middle because I trained at CCW. I've seen it a lot, and I've done a TLC with Greg, and that was the most I'd ever do. I'm not totally for hardcore wrestling, but that's just with me. If the Sammys of the world or whatever want to do it, hey, go for it. That's great. I'm not going to get involved, but I mean, if that's what you want to do, awesome. I also have a thing with blood. I went to one tournament of death, and I saw a guy get pile drove on a cinder block, and like his scalp was like just hanging, and I was just like, oh no, this is not. So like just the thought of blood and like broken bones, and I personally don't like it just because I get, I don't like that kind of stuff. But I'm not against anybody that want to do it, Just be safe, please.
Fair enough. I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And your energy. Thank you very much. On behalf of Mia Yim, this is Mark Madison for the Pro Wrestling Post podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Pro Wrestling Post podcast with your host, Mark Madison. Once again, please visit ProWrestlingPost.com for interviews, blogs, and upcoming events in your area. And be sure to download the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Anchor, or whatever podcast app you prefer.